Gordon says, is Kyogo in Glasgow or is it an April Fool's joke? This comes off the back of, I don't know if you saw the comments today about Jorge Sampaoli, who was the Rennes boss when they signed Kyogo, Keith, for £10 million. He's basically come out and said he didn't want him.
Yeah.
And obviously we know that his time in France has not gone well. I know it sounds a bit fanciful, but Jota came back.
Oh, listen, would you rule it out with Celtic? Absolutely not, because they do incredible business deals. They're about to welcome Kieran Tierney back, having flogged him for 25 million. He's still, if he's physically able to withstand the rigours of Scottish football, he's still approaching his prime. He's not at his prime yet, and they're getting him back for nothing. Sell for 25, sign back for nothing. Jota, similar. Jota was only away 18 months. Sell for 25. What was the fee involved there?
It's about 8.5, wasn't it?
8.5, aye.
Buttons. And you've only lost the guy for 18 months. These are incredible bits of business.
Aye.
Who's to say that Kyogo hasn't realised that, quite clearly the grass isn't always greener? He's made a mistake. And Jota realised that he'd made a mistake. I don't think Kieran Tierney would say, I made a mistake. Kieran Tierney had to take that move on. Of course he did. But he's glad to be getting home. Jota obviously realised it was a terrible decision going to Saudi Arabia. Terrible decision. But he couldn't wait to get back. He is back. Now, Kyogo might have moved to... but look, Daniel, you said it yourself. On what basis did that sound like a move that Kyogo couldn't turn down?
I know. I still can't get my head around that.
Battle in France and Rennes. Who knows? Maybe he's went away and realised, no, I can't believe I've left that behind. Who knows?
Aye.
And given that Rennes' position has now been undermined by the previous coach saying, I didn't rate him in the first place, there could well be a deal to be done there.
Marzuno points out, Fraser, that he can't see it. He was desperate to get out of Glasgow for whatever reason, which I think is a relevant point. But it would be so funny if Celtic lined up the first day next season with Kieran Tierney, Matt O'Reilly, Kyogo.
He was desperate to get out of town.
For that reason, his comeback was tail firmly between his legs, Kyogo. If I can't imagine it. I really can't. The boy was desperate to get out of Celtic. Brendan Rodgers is good to say that. He'd been itching to get out since last summer. I don't think...
Yeah, but for what? Now that he's made the move and he's experienced it and it backfired on him, maybe there's a bit of a comfort blanket. I'm not saying... I'm being a bit facetious purely because of these previous deals that Celtic have managed to pull off, which are quite incredible. Who's to say there's not another one in the pipeline? I mean, I don't think so. I'm not seriously saying that I think this is what's going to happen, but I'm just saying the track record there shows you maybe can't rule it out.
You couldn't rule it out,
I think Brendan Rodgers would want him back. A guy that sits to get away is, if Kyogo did somehow come back, he's lost his halo to his fellow Japanese pal.
Well, Fraser, you've got to remember, this is Brendan Rodgers we're talking about. Did he not do something similar?
Aye.
Like he is without sin, etc., etc.
But aye, it wasn't back quite so quickly.
Did you say there, Keith, you don't think Rodgers would take Kyogo back?
If you're a manager and you have had a problem with a specific player and his personality, and you've doubted his interest and ambition and doing his job for the team because he's too busy wanting his head's turned and he wants away, you might need to. You would require, as a manager, to establish that there's been a real U-turn and change of heart. You would need to know that the guy was desperate and it wasn't just, I might as well just go back there. You would need to be convinced that the guy was motivated for all the right reasons and like Brendan Rodgers himself, probably regretful of making a move that he thought the grass was going to be greener and it turned out it wasn't. And I think, it would be... an astonishing position for Brendan Rodgers to take if he said, no, well, there's no way back. Well, how can there be no way back? It would be very hypocritical for Brendan Rodgers to say that no player can make that same journey, the journey that he made as a manager. But I think if you had doubts, and clearly they did have doubts, and and I think Kyogo was irritating for a move behind the scenes for some time. That'll have played on people's nerves. That would have got on people's nerves. That'll have wound people up the wrong way. So it would need to be a very contrite version of Kyogo that came back. And he'd need to be able to convince all the relevant parties that he wanted to come back for the right reasons. But I don't know. Look, I think this is almost a fanciful conversation we're having. As I said...
Let me make another argument, all right? Celtic made £10 million out of this deal. Serious money for Kyogo, who's the wrong side.
Make that again.
The wrong side of 30 now, if I'm not mistaken. They've taken Kieran Tierney back at 27, 28, and Jota even younger. There's a future there. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic worked 2 or 3 transfer windows in advance. They've got irons in the fire. They know who they want to go out and sign as a Kyogo replacement this summer. They've got Dazen Mida in there doing the business. Adam Mida, who I still think has plenty to offer. Jota on one wing. Oh no, I sound like I'm going to start singing here. Nicholas Kuhn another. You know, they're not desperate for Kyogo to return. And to be honest, this wasn't his strongest season before he left anyway. I would be astonished if Celtic took him back.
Rebel said
their eyes elsewhere, and he'll quickly have been forgotten by the Celtic management.
Rebel in the comment section there says Dyson thrives since Kyogo left. Will they disrupt that? It's a fair point. Very fair point indeed.
You're always looking for the best squad you can get, though. And you'd be crazy if you weren't opportunistic. If, for example, you sell for 10 million and you can get back for a quarter of that 6 months later, that sounds like good business to me.
John,
yes, you might be writing off the sell-on value, but you tell me that he's not worth £2.5 million to have in the squad, even if you've now convinced yourself that Dyson Maida's your main central striker. Kyogo's your backup. Look, I don't think it'll happen, by the way. I must kind of preface this with that. We're talking, fantasy stuff, really. But if you actually look at the sort of nuts and bolts of would it be possible? Yeah, Rennes would have to take a massive loss. Celtic would need to be convinced that they were doing it for the right reasons. Brendan Rodgers would need to be happy that Kyogo wanted to be part of it and fully committed to it. So you've got all these different factors. But it's not to say that it couldn't happen. I just think it's highly unlikely. And we've probably wasted the last 15 minutes talking about it.